Venezuelan armed forces are urged to complete transactions to acquire a package of 10 Chinese J-10-C, which would accompany existing fleet of Russian SU-28. We already saw successful deployment of 2 units of Russian SU-28, which patrolled the entire length of Venezuelan territorial waters to proximity of hostile United States ship Jason and turned back. The United States felt provoked, and the former Department of Defense yesterday, which has been renamed today as Department of War, declared that they are only patrolling for drug traffic and that the Venezuelan authorities should not interrupt United States patrolling on international waters, which are also available for Venezuelan and other military equipment from the planet because they are international. It would have been interesting if the United States Department of Defense had been renamed Department of War yesterday rather than today, because the wording of the communique that was published yesterday night would have been different, because right now they are a Department of War and they could not be writing in a somewhat peaceful fashion as they intended to do yesterday. President Donald Trump also authorized military commanders at the White House to employ lethal force against Venezuelan military, which they already have, because a few days ago a small boat was destroyed by United States Navy or Army or whatever hostile units were employed lethal force. There has been huge debate on whether artificial intelligence was used to fake the attack, but it seems that at San Juan de Unare there are family members claiming the relatives as victims. So it is safe to assume that, in effect, the killing occurred, which has been adequately described by Colombian President Gustavo Petro as an assassination requiring the full application of international law. International law is already being requested by the countries of CELAC, and a majority of countries in both South America and the Caribbean signed for the immediate cessation of United States hostilities. However, it is perfectly known that the United States will continue their efforts for provoking regime change in Venezuela and perhaps Colombia. It has been noticed that a very hawkish Marco Rubio arrived in Quito, Ecuador, offering military air bases and facilities to Ecuador, which will probably be eventually directed to the Nariño Palace at Bogota, which is the residency of the President of Colombia, just as they are already trying to do to Miraflores Palace in Caracas, Venezuela, which is the seat of government of our country. It is significant that the island of Puerto Rico is the basis of all of this attack. And while all of this is too recent, I invite fellow Puerto Ricans to decide if they really wish to remain as a colony of the United States. Puerto Ricans have tried to become a state for over 100 years, and they have continuously failed. And in many aspects, neighboring Dominican Republic enjoys much more development than the United States colony of Puerto Rico. There have been calls for Puerto Rico to go back to the Spanish crown. There are talks of Puerto Rico gaining independence, which at this point seems the most desirable outcome, so that it can immediately join CELAC and CARICOM, or it could pursue statehood, which would provide them 4 congressmen rather than just 1, and 2 senators, and 6 electoral votes at United States federal elections. However, it is unlikely for this to happen, as many states in the United States would not want to have their Congress representation be diminished to accommodate for new representatives from Puerto Rico. And there are also mathematical calculations of both Democrats and Republicans, which constantly derail Puerto Rico's gestures to become the 51st state. The Puerto Rican population continues being Hispanic, they continue speaking Spanish, they continue culturally assimilated to Latin America, and it is time for Puerto Rican citizens to decide if they wish to be observers of United States genocide against their fellow Latin American neighbor Venezuela, with which Puerto Rico has had so much good relationship over centuries, in order to satisfy the militaristic annexation pretensions of Marco Rubio and Donald Trump. Independence for Puerto Rico was usually seen as not desirable because they would lose economic benefits which they are supposed to enjoy from the United States. However, they will have to deeply think what their future would be, just as Guyanese have been doing, which are already consumed on an endless recount process. Guyana still has no president-elect, even though Jamaican Prime Minister already went out of the way and congratulated Irfan Ali, who by this time is illegitimate. APNU, APNU leader, requested a full repetition of elections as he believes the whole process was void. Asruddin Mohammed from Win Party also complained that at Potaro Siparuni Region 8, which is part of the Guayana Esequiba state of Venezuela as well, voted mostly for the Win Party, but the winner appears to be the PPP, while most of the Esequibo citizens voted Win, and Nasruddin Mohammed, and a better integration between the sister countries of Guyana and Venezuela. Irfan Ali is not guaranteeing peace because Irfan Ali is exploiting this madness of military aircraft being settled first in Puerto Rico and perhaps later on Guyanese soil. Venezuela, of course, has lots of civilian priorities, but during times of war, those priorities have shifted, and Venezuela's number one economic priority right now should be addressing all economic negotiations involving loans or payment facilities for China, so that our military right now can acquire Chinese J-10-C units, honoring the proposed package of 10 units to be deployed immediately for the defense of Venezuelan sovereignty that can be intruded by United States enemy army and navy at any time. A combo of Russian SU-28s and Chinese J-10-C aircraft deployed with missiles and drones, as advertised by various Chinese, Iranian, and Russian sources, in addition to any North Korean equipment we might already secretly have, as everything coming from North Korea is top secret, would eventually provide effective deterrence to F-35s that are being deployed from the continental United States to their colony, Puerto Rico. If Puerto Rico were to become independent as part of the Caribbean, it could immediately deprive the United States from a Caribbean facade, and the United States will have to concentrate on North America, which is the only continent where they belong. United States has no business in Europe, as Donald Trump has told Volodymyr Zelensky so many times, and the United States has no business in Asia, as Prime Minister Modi has emphasized during his recent best friends visits with Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping. We will expect a glorious meeting between Modi and Putin in Moscow, Russia, during the month of December. Such a meeting will seal the predominance of the BRICS countries, as during the last few years we always warned that India seemed the weakest link in the alliance. But now that we have India solidly allied with China, Russia, Brazil, and South Africa, along with Iran, Saudi Arabia, Ethiopia, and any other new members, such as Cuba and Bolivia, we could expect that their military might can be deployed into Venezuela to deprive the United States from the opportunity of invading our land and our oil. This channel has extensively discussed the benefits of exploring heavy crude at the Orinoco Belt, which is the largest petroleum reservoir on planet Earth. While some limited exploitation is already being made by various consortia of PDVSA and international companies, the United States seeks invasion so that they can create an American monopoly of Venezuelan resources, and Venezuelan military and Venezuelan population will not allow that to happen. And that is why we are so strongly committed to defending our borders and our territory. Venezuela wishes to develop the Orinoco Belt through accompanying new refineries, roads, and pipelines that should also cross into Essequibo, so that the booming Guyana oil industry can merge with soon to be booming Venezuelan oil industry and become the most formidable player in the international oil market. A war between United States and Venezuela is asymmetric. It is a big country trying to bully a small country, while territorial differences of sister countries such as Pakistan and India or Guyana and Venezuela should be solved diplomatically, as both Pakistan and India are valuable members of the Asian community, and Guyana and Venezuela are both valued members of the South American and Caribbean community. Hopefully, citizens of Guyana, India, and Pakistan will understand what Venezuela is going through right now, and we all notice that any border differences between third world countries are useless, because that is what colonial powers have made us apply in automatic pilot. Analysts believe that United States invasion to Venezuela is unlikely, but I would like to point out that there is the assumption that Venezuela has a lot of deterrence capabilities. We might have deterrence capabilities in drones and missiles, and we have some deterrence capabilities in aviation. And this is the third time I stressed it out in this video. Venezuela must complete purchase of Chinese J-10-C airplane fighters, because the United States moved F-35s into Puerto Rico for war against Venezuela and for invasion for further looting of Orinoco Belt oil reserves. They will not say that publicly, but enough analysts have arrived to such obvious conclusion. We would like to thank our neighbors from Grenada, Barbados, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dominica, Antigua and Barbuda, St. Kitts and Nevis, Mexico, Honduras, Nicaragua, Colombia, Brazil, Cuba, Chile, and perhaps I may have forgotten another country, Suriname. All of those countries together conform the majority of CELAC, Latin America, and the Caribbean. There are citizens in countries such as Paraguay, Ecuador, Argentina, El Salvador, Guatemala, Panama, Guyana, and Trinidad and Tobago, which might not like the United States invasion idea. Venezuelans are getting prepared for war, unfortunately. We have always been at peace, but United States changing labeling of Department of Defense today as Department of War, and ordering lethal assassination of Venezuelan citizens a few days ago, and ordering destruction of Venezuelan military equipment is sufficient grounds to believe that war has already started. And it seems that it will keep escalating. President Nicolás Maduro still provided a glimpse of hope and peace, telling President Donald Trump that if he wants to destroy drug cartels, at a united hemispheric fashion, he would gladly join forces with him, but unfortunately, that will not be possible because Marco Rubio is in charge of Department of State, and Marco Rubio is determined to forget important foreign policy issues the United States has all over the planet to cultivate his resentment against Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua. Marco Rubio was recently in Mexico. He had a conversation with President Claudia Sheinbaum, and it seems that they couldn't agree on anything because President Sheinbaum did not appear in press conference with Marco Rubio. Only the foreign minister appeared on such press conference, and they merely signed previously written agreements of non-controversial items.